Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to Circling Seattle Sports on Converge Media. Of course, as always, I am your host, Charles Hammaker, here with you. We're in the Black Media Matter studios. We are back. Bella, unfortunately, not with me. As you can see, it's just my American Filipino self here on your screen as usual. So things continue, though. Things continue on as always. Bell and Matt were at the last two Mariners games, though, so we'll get to their coverage of those games when we get to the Mariners section, which is going to be up first since we don't have any Seahawks news. The Seahawks continue to approach the draft. Will they draft Jalen Carter? Will it be Will Anderson? That's to be seen, and it also depends on the first four picks in the draft. So that's still approaching. We'll have info on that as it continues to come along, but since there's nothing to do with our Seahawks, we're jumping straight into the Mariners news. So we will head into that, wrapping off that little Midwest road trip that the Mariners were on, ending at Wrigley Field with the Chicago Cubs. 3 games set there. The first 2 did not really go the Mariners' way. April 10th at the Cubs, a 2-3 loss. Our player of the game, pinch hitter, left fielder Jarred Kelenic, 1 hit, 1 run, 1 RBI, and a pinch hit solo homer in the top of the 9th inning. April 11th at the Cubs, a disastrous 9-14 loss. Our player of the game, first baseman Ty France, 3 hits, 2 runs, 2 RBIs. Now, before I continue on with that Cubs segment, you can see those 2 scores. I mean, the first game, a 1-run loss seems fine. That game went into extra innings. The Mariners had several opportunities to go ahead and win that game or put ahead the go-ahead runs. Were unable to do so. That 9-14 loss on the 11th was just ugly. After the first few innings, the Mariners had a 7-run inning. Things looked glorious. They had a 7-0 lead, and then they gave up an 8-run inning, and it was just ugly from there on out. They were able to get a few more runs, but just could not come back after that 8-run inning that they allowed to the Cubs. Then on the getaway game on the 12th, somewhat satisfying to wrap up with a win and salvage a game from that series, a 5-2 win. Our player of the game, right fielder Teoscar Hernandez. Teo, 2 hits, 1 run, 2 RBIs, and a 2-run shot. His 2-run homer came before the Jarred Kelenic home run that went 482 feet. That is the longest by a Mariner in the StatCast era, and I believe the longest one at Wrigley Field. Went out to dead center in Wrigley, and nobody hits out to dead center in Wrigley. And it was the third consecutive homer, third homer in as many days that he had hit. So a homer in each game of the series. That brings us over to the Rockies series. The team returned home to T-Mobile Park April 14th versus the Rockies after the day off. A 5-3 win. So a nice way to start the homestand, get their second win in a row. Jarred Kelenic continued his hot play, 2 hits, 2 runs, 2 RBIs, and a 2-run homer. So he made it 4 homers in as many games. He was hotter than the sun, some could say. He had that 2-run homer in that one. So that was really nice to see. So I try to do this better every week with the photos that we get from these home games. So from that win, that 5-3 win, we've got Teoscar Hernandez here embracing Jarred Kelenic. Teoscar, I believe, had the single before Jarred came up. Jarred homered them to bring them both across, and you can see the emotion from Teoscar captured by our photographer Brian Saldana there. Nice to see the guys have fun. I know when Teoscar was brought in here in the press conference that he said he wants to make this team like a family, and it just seems like the guy has a ton of fun around here. So we'll go back to it. April 15th versus the Rockies, a 9-2 win. The Mariners were finally able to cash in a little bit with the bases loaded. Our player of the game, center fielder Julio Rodriguez, J-Rod, 1 hit, 1 run, 4 RBIs. 3 of those 4 ribbies came with a bases clearing triple. Again, nice to see the Mariners finally cash in with the bases loaded. That's been something that they haven't been able to do the last few years. So to see them be able to do that, come up with that nice 7-run differential victory against the Rockies is good to see. Then they were able to close out the sweep April 16th versus the Rockies with a 1-0 win. Our player of the game, nobody else but La Piedra. Luis Castillo, 7 innings pitched, 2 hits allowed, no runs allowed, no walks given up, and 9 strikeouts. He flirted with a perfect game for a while, but that did end in the 6th inning. Still, only 2 hits, no runs, no walks, 9 strikeouts. An excellent performance from the Mariners ace. We'll go here on the. I said I'd be better about the photos, and then I do this. April 15th, we've got this photo. It was Jackie Robinson Day around MLB. Our photographer. Oops, the tag is wrong on that, so I apologize. The tags on both of those are wrong. They're both Matthew Bermudez, so we'll fix that here. Jackie Robinson Day, Matthew Bermudez, our photographer on site. Ignore the tag in the top right. Everybody on both teams, everybody around the league wore the Dodger Blue 42 on their backs and had special edition hats, socks, and just general merchandise as well. And then from the 16th, again, apologies, forget the top right corner tag. Luis Castillo in that excellent game there, captured by Matthew Bermudez. If you want to read up on both of those games, you can go to our blog, the Converge Media blog, and you can see both of those recaps and photos by Bel Garcia and Matthew Bermudez. Before I get to the general, I had to stop myself there. Before I get to the general discussion about the last 2 series, our player of the week, I mean, I said his name a lot. It would make sense, right? Jarred Kelenic, 6 games played. Over those 6 games, 9 total hits, 6 runs, 6 RBIs, 3 walks, 4 homers, 6 extra base hits in total, 1 stolen base, amounting to 23 total bases. So again, you know, we saw a little bit of it in the Cleveland series. And just in little bits and pieces before the last 2 ones that we've been talking about here. It's been great, really great, and I'll put him back on the screen here, to see Jarred Kelenic continue to heat up. I mean, there was all this potential part of that Mets trade, and I talked about it a little bit in the first game of the Rockies series on my recap of that, and even on our road trip recap, which we are doing now. So be sure, again, to keep tuned in with the blogs. But just continue to see him perform. I mean, he's always had a solid glove. He was on the Sports Center top 10 at number 8 for a catch he made in right field for yesterday's game against the Rockies that was able to kept things scoreless. And that's a big part of that Rockies game, as you heard, a 1-0 win. But continuing to see him be patient at the plate, his glove in the outfield continues to be stellar. He started in left field a lot, but that play that he made that I just mentioned was in right field, so he can play the outfield. We've seen him play center field before. So just continuing to see him perform, you know, and not he's having fun while doing it. And that's been a lot of criticism. It's kind of always weird to me to hear people say, oh, he should smile more. Anybody should smile more. Like, that's a little odd, in my opinion. But just seeing him, obviously, you know, the emotion, the post-game dance that the outfielders do in addition to the infielders, you know, it's good to see Jarred enjoying this and perform as well. Both of those aspects, you know, coming together. And if he's able to do that, to have an outfield of guys that are producing with Kelenic, with Julio, with Teoscar, that's one of the better outfields in all of MLB. So that's, again, we've got 162 games in total to play. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it's nice to see that, you know, at least, and especially the 6-game stretch, the 4 homers in as many days, that Titanic one at Wrigley, excellent to see. Outside of that, unfortunate those first 2 games at Wrigley. I mean, the one to open the series, to lose in extra innings, that's tough. But again, you had opportunities to bring runners across that you squandered. The 9-14 game was just unreal. That was nightmarish. I mean, to have a 7-run inning, excellent, explosive, you know, to really go out there. The offense had kind of been dawdling along a little bit. And then Chris Flexen, unfortunate that his start went that way, gave up 8 runs in the inning after. And it's not good. That one was tough. To see them salvage the series was encouraging, though, and now they're on this 4-game stretch. We'll see how long that lasts, as I knock on wood. They took care of the Rockies. You know, the Rockies franchise as a whole has kind of struggled in years past. German Marquez went on the injured list, so that deals a blow to their rotation. And now they have they continue. They've got a 9-game homestand going on currently, where they're going to take on a Brewers team that started off well, and they take on the Cardinals, who are no easy feat either. So nice to see this continue along. They're in 2nd place in the division now. I just hate seeing it after, you know, even a bad series where it's just doomsday. You know, you wave the white flag and you're want to trade everybody. Overreactionary comments like that are kind of why we started everything with Circling Seattle Sports, just because that's ludicrous and stupid. But anyway, point being, we've got 162 games to play. Let's relax, right? They got a long way to go. They're second in the division right now, and we're only in April. So we'll get through it. Speaking of getting through it, we've got some injury-related news for you, starting here with Dylan Moore. Dylan Moore not ready to play in games yet. He did meet with the team back on the 14th before heading on and is not yet headed out on a rehab assignment with the Tacoma Rainiers. Moore will likely need to play more than a handful of games. Outfielders Cade Marlowe and Taylor Trammell are closer to playing in games, and starting pitcher Robbie Ray has not started throwing yet, but he feels good, quote unquote. So those are some updates for you in regards to that. We're going to head over to some roster moves here. There was a lot of them as the team dealt with injuries to Ray and Munoz, amongst others. On the 10th of April, the team selected right-handed pitcher Jose Rodriguez. Rodriguez, as a 27-year-old, has made 2 appearances and 1 start with the Tacoma Rainiers this current season, throwing 5 scoreless innings. The right-hander has was signed with Seattle to a minor league contract and an invite to spring training on November 22nd. The Venezuela native originally signed with the Angels and as an international free agent on December 3rd of 2012, and has since spent time with the Angels, Braves, Mets, and Mariners organizations. The same day, the team optioned right-handed pitcher J.B. Bukowskis to AAA Tacoma, and infielder/outfielder Nick Solak was designated for assignment from AAA Tacoma. On the 12th, the team selected the contract of right-handed pitcher Darren McCacken, optioned right-handed pitcher Jose Rodriguez to AAA Tacoma, and designated left-handed pitcher Brennan Bernardino for assignment from AAA Tacoma. On the 14th, you can see there's a lot of roster movement here. I have a friend here named Manny who would be very happy to hear the Darren McCacken news. So, Manny, this is for you, buddy. April 14th, left-handed pitcher Tommy Malone was selected from AAA Tacoma. He would make the start that day as left-handed pitcher Marco Gonzalez was placed on the paternity list. He had a solid outing after allowing a solo homer to Chris Bryant in the top of the first. And then right-handed pitcher J.B. Bukowskis was designated for assignment that day. April 15th, to wrap things up, infielder Jose Caballero was selected from AAA Tacoma. He was a name that we watched throughout the course of spring training who performed pretty well, and I thought maybe might be able to make the starting opening day roster, but did not. And he did make his MLB debut in the 9th inning. And on the same day, left-handed pitcher Tommy Malone was designated for assignment. Some may ask, why was he designated for assignment the same day the day after he had made a really nice start with the Mariners? That's because he's an 11-year veteran and he's out of options. So if a team picks him up, he goes there. But if he clears waivers, he'll likely return to AAA Tacoma. So wondering why, there are a lot of things that anger me about Mariners Twitter because a lot of people don't understand how things work. But that's why we're here, right? That's why we're here. So Tommy Malone, designated for assignment, wasn't because he did anything bad, just because he's out of options. He's an 11-year veteran. He doesn't have that many anymore. So we continue to move along here with our upcoming. The Mariners sit at an 8-8 record, so they're at the 500 mark. They sit at second in the American League West behind the Rangers. Looking ahead, they close out their 9-game homestand here, starting with the Brewers tonight. April 17th versus the Brewers is a 6:40 p.m. start. April 18th versus the Brewers is also a 6:40 start. And then April 19th versus the Brewers is a 1:10 p.m. game. That's a Wednesday matinee game. And then the Mariners will get the Thursday off before they take on the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals, April 21st versus the Cardinals is a Friday game at 7:10 p.m. And it's also All-Star Hat Night giveaway. April 22nd versus the Cardinals is a 6:40 p.m. start on Saturday. And then April 23rd versus the Cardinals, a 1:10 p.m. game. On Sunday is Little League Day, and every kid in attendance will get a George Kirby and Logan Gilbert poster. Apologies on that. Again, as I mentioned, the Brewers have done a pretty good job to start the season. The Cardinals they're really not that spectacular to start the year. Let me double check on that. I don't want to talk bad about a team and then have them be doing well really secretly. I know the Brewers have been doing well because we had to look at them for our game day The Cardinals 7-9, so they're pretty close to where the Mariners are right now. So I wouldn't scoff at them either. We move along to our Storm, and we finally have Storm information after going weeks and relatively months without anything to go on about with our Storm. So over the past week on Monday, actually, so the day of the last recording that you saw us here, the Storm had the WNBA draft. They had 4 picks in the draft. They didn't trade any of them. They didn't move out of their spots. And good to see that they didn't, because at the number 9 overall pick in the first round, the Storm were able to select guard Jordan Horston out of Tennessee. Now, this was a pick that a lot of people didn't expect to happen. Horston was projected to go higher in this draft, and I'm really glad that she didn't. Out of Tennessee had a great time at the Seattle Regional, actually, that Belle Garcia and Matthew Bermudez were at. So it's nice to see that. She finished her career with 1,445 points, 731 rebounds, 455 assists, 163 steals, and 109 blocks while starting 91 of 114 games that she participated in. She tallied the number 29 all-time point total by a Lady Vol and is one of the only 2 players to record 1,000 points, 700 rebounds, and 400 assists during a career there at Tennessee. She stands number 1 amongst true guards at Tennessee with 21 career double-doubles, including 8 last season. She finished number 7 at Tennessee in both career ranks, in both career assists and career assists average, ranking number 8 in career 20-plus scoring efforts with 17. She joined Dawn Marsh as the only Tennessee players to lead the program in assist average all 4 years of their careers. And she averaged 9.39 rebounds in 21-22, a mark that ranks number 6 all-time by a Lady Vol and number 3 by a Tennessee junior. A lot to go on there. But she's great offensively. She can play on the ball as well as off the ball. Very athletic defensively. She doesn't have quite the reach that Breanna Stewart had, but very athletic, very agile defensively, and is going to be a key there. Might take over that point guard spot, but this was a great get to see for the Storm, considering, again, that she was projected to go higher than the number 9 overall spot. Continuing with the draft here in the second round, the Storm had 2 picks. Starting number 18, they selected forward Maddie Williams out of Oklahoma. Williams is an all Big 12 first-team pick, led OU with an 18 point per game and 7.6 rebound per game average. She joined the former Storm player Courtney Paris as the only Sooners to lead the team in rebounds in 4 straight seasons. Number 21 overall pick out of USF, the Bulls, Dulce Fankum Mendijudu. She posted averages of 16.5 points per game and a conference best 12.3 rebounds per game en route to earning the American Athletic Conference Co-Player of the Year honors, and really came along the last few years of her time in college. So it's good to see that. I know that there's been some early criticism there about her size and how she might look as a WNBA center. Some wanted Bree Beal to be the pick here out of South Carolina. And there's been criticism also considering the fact that the Storm have Mercedes Russell and Ezgi Magbegor at the Storm spot already under contract. So we'll see how that goes. I know that head coach Noelle Quinn mentioned that she has already played in a pro-style offense, so they like that. And then in the third round, the Storm had the 33 overall pick, and they selected guard Jade Lovile out of Arizona. She spent time at Boise State, ASU, and Arizona in her collegiate career. She is a Sammamish native and Skyline High School graduate, averaging 9.8 points over 32 games for the Wildcats, scoring in double figures 18 times and shooting 36.1% from three-point range. So 2 guards there, 2 forwards, one of them being a big for the Storm. This is going to be a big draft in a way to see what the Storm look like moving forward. I know that I've talked about it since Breanna Stewart signed with the Liberty, that this is an interesting era that the Storm are entering. You know, there's a lot of minutes that need to be decided who's going to get them, right? I mean, Drew Lloyd, Kia Nurse will obviously take up some starting time, I'm sure. Sammy Whitcomb coming off the bench, maybe she slots in the starting position, probably. So again, there's a lot to be decided here, but it's very interesting to see. It's nice to see that Horston pick. That was obviously very exciting for the organization. But with Williams, with Dulce, with Lovile, where do they fit in? Will they make the roster? And that's something that's going to take place over the next few weeks and then the next month in May as the team goes through camp. So we'll look at that more when we get a chance with Bell. Keep an eye out for that. But now we will head over here to our Sounders. And, I've got all this excitement with the Storm segment, with the Horston pick, with the draft as a whole. And then you head over to the Sounders, and things were not pretty with the Sounders. So initially the Sounders headed down to Portland for the first Cascadia matchup that the Sounders would play this season. They had the lead to begin things. They took the lead, to begin things. They had the first lead of the match. They took that in the 65th minute with a Raul Ruidiaz score. And then things took a turn. I was actually in the OL Reign press conference when I saw this happening. Goal after goal after goal. It became 4 unanswered goals in the final 30 minutes of the match. The Sounders just collapsed. Our player of the match, midfielder Nico Ladero. Nico won an 8.0 match rating, 5 shots, 76% passing, 3 chances created, 2 tackles, 1, and 14 recoveries on the day. It would have been Raul, but Raul had a 6.9 match rating. I can't give you the most in-depth description of what went on in this match because of the fact that I was in the press conference when this was taking place, when that collapse took place. We'll look at the injury report. Josh Atencio missed that match. He was out. Albert Rusnak was questionable. I don't believe he played in that match, though. I can check that and see if it matters. But and then Christian Roldan did miss this match as he had concussion-like symptoms after taking a hit in the match against St. Louis. This is ugly. I mean, again, I don't want to be dissuaded from one match. I know that there was a certain Sounders account that we keep tabs on that had a lot of not so kind words to mention about things. And I mean, you could do, Rusnak did not feature in this one. Okay. But yeah, I mean, those 4 unanswered is unfortunate, especially doing so against a club like Portland that really hasn't started the year out well. And it's a rivalry match, so you're going to hear about it. We've already got Timber's comments on our stuff already, which I'm not worried about, and I wouldn't necessarily be completely panic mode like some of the outlets that I mentioned. It's obviously a really embarrassing loss. This is really bad. But you see the way that the Sounders have started out the season, I wouldn't really be too worried. The only loss that they had suffered before this was to FC Cincinnati, who started the year off really well, and they came off the one goal late, and the Sounders should have had another goal. I had a goal to, equalize that, but was called back because of a foul in the buildup. I wouldn't really be upset about it. You were out Roldan, you were out Atencio, you were out Rusnak. Hebert is continuing to build back to health and has been in the last few matches. So I wouldn't be worried about it. It's not a nice way to start off Cascadia, not a loss that you ever want to take against Portland, and Seattle certainly has to match the intensity of Portland in these matches. A good stat that was pointed out was that the Sounders had blocked 13 shots before the Raul Ruidiaz goal, and they only blocked 1 after that goal. That just can't happen. So again, there is a lot to take from this going forward. You need to match that intensity from Portland, and you can't let this loss spill out into the other matches that you're going to play moving forward. But again, similar to the ways that, Mariners Twitter can be, I don't want it to be like the end of the world, with this loss to Portland. So we'll move on from it. In team-related notes, on the 12th of April, both Christian Roldan and Jordan Morris were called into the U.S. men's national team for a showdown with Mexico. The duo has been called up for the inaugural All-State Continental Clasico against our rival Mexico on Wednesday, April 19th in Glendale, Arizona. If you want to watch that match, it's at 7 p.m. Pacific time that day on TBS, Telemundo, Universal, HBO Max, and Peacock. Both players earned their first call-up since representing the men's national team at the 2022 FIFA Men's World Cup in Qatar. This showdown with Mexico marks the first edition of this Clasico, a new annual event that features the men's national team of the U.S. hosting a top-tier opponent from North, Central, or South America. Morris has 51 appearances with the U.S. and 11 goals, including 2 appearances during the World Cup against the Wales and the Netherlands. He leads the MLS with 8 goals this season, including a club record 4 against Sporting Kansas City. Roldan has 32 caps for the men's national team, most recently being part of the squad at the World Cup. Roldan has started all 7 of Seattle's MLS regular season appearances prior to this Portland match, scoring a goal in the season opener against Colorado. So nice to see those two get called up again. It'll be interesting to see how much they feature in that match on the 19th, if they do, which is in a few days. But then I don't know how much that'll limit their appearance in this next match. So we'll get to that here. The Sounders sit at a 5-win, 2-loss, 1-draw record. They're 5th in the entirety of the MLS and 3rd in the Western Conference in terms of points. Looking ahead, their next match is April 22nd, back at home versus Minnesota United FC with a 7:30 p.m. start time. As I mentioned, you don't want to let this spill out. Minnesota sits at 6th in the West with 11 points. The Sounders have 16. So depending on what happens with FC Dallas and San Jose, if the Sounders lose, they could drop a few spots. So prefer not to do that. Take care of business against Minnesota. If you follow the Sounders at all, you know that the Sounders have an interesting little head-to-head with Minnesota going on the last few years, where Seattle's gotten the better end of things. So you'd like to see that continue here. We move on now to our Kraken, who are playoff bound. They wrapped up the regular season over the course of the past week with 2 games on the road and 1 game at home to finish things up. They play tomorrow. We'll get into this past week. April 10th versus the Coyotes on the road, a 4-1 win. Our player of the game for Jared McCann-Kenner, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, a 1+- and 7 shots on the day. With he hit 40 goals, pardon me, not 50. That would be cool. He hit 40 goals on the season. That is the first time a Kraken player has ever done that. He is also the Kraken all-time leading goal scorer. With that victory, the Kraken became the 2nd fastest franchise in NHL history with a 100-point campaign within their first 2 seasons behind the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Then we go over here, the final road game of the regular season, a 4-1 loss to the Golden Knights. Our player of the game forward, Yanni Gordo, 1 goal, 1 point, 1 shot, 4 hits, 1 block, and 1 takeaway. April 13th versus the Golden Knights, Fan Appreciation Day, the final game of the regular season, the final home game of the regular season, a 3-1 loss. Unfortunately, the Golden Knights, that game score padded by the empty netter that Vegas had. This game, after about the second intermission or so, we found out that with the LA Kings win, that the Kraken couldn't move up any further, so it didn't matter for them in terms of seeding. Vegas was still playing to take the top spot in the Pacific Division and the Western Conference, and they were able to do so with that win. Our player of the game forward, Morgan Geekie, 1 assist, 1 point, 4 shots, and 1 block. We'll go over here we have 2 photos from this game against Las Vegas, 2 photos of the match. We've got here this one where you can see the puck just slipping out of the reach of Philip Grubauer. That was on the second goal of the game there. And then we've got a nice little fight from who else but the Pepper Pot, Yanni Gourde, where you can see him connecting right there and the reaction of the referee. Take a second, admire both of those by our photographer, Liv Lyons, that day at the April 13th game. We'll go into our player of the week here before we get into discussion of the games. Player of the week for Jared McCann. Jared didn't necessarily have numbers that burst off of the page over the past 3 games. 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points. That came in the Arizona game. But the 40-goal season and him being the all-time leading goal scorer for the team, sitting at 67, 14 more than the second-place scorer, Jordan Eberle, at 43. Him being the first ever player to sign, and we'll keep that up, and so you can see it when it comes down. You can kind of see it underneath there. But him being the first player to sign an extension with the Kraken ever, and obviously meant a lot to some fans, talking about wanting to win a Stanley Cup here with the Kraken, talking about how Seattle is special to him. That meant a lot. And so for him to go out and have a career year is really special. So it's really nice to have that from Jared. The Arizona game, I mean, Seattle did what they needed to. They took care of business against a bad Coyotes team. I mentioned it last week, and a friend of mine got a good laugh at it. They can't even tank right. They won too many games, so they have really slim chances to land the top pick for Connor Bedard. Those Las Vegas games, though, were tough. I mean, that one on the road was just relatively ugly. Seattle looked gassed. It was the second game of a back-to-back. They just didn't look ready for it. That one on the 13th, though, Seattle, I mean, they had the energy all game long. Their expected goals was higher. They just weren't able to get that one in. And the first goal that Vegas had was one that came on a bad bounce. Vince Dunn tried to clear the puck up the ice. Riley Smith of Las Vegas had his his skate in the right spot. Philip Grubauer wasn't expecting it. It slipped in. That can't pin that one on anybody. Obviously, unfortunate that it came on Vincent trying to clear the puck up the ice, but it's tough. And then that second one, actually, it was interesting because Daniel Sprong came back after being in the penalty box. And so it was technically 5-on-5 hockey, but because the Golden Knights were in, I believe they were on a delayed penalty, it was technically an undermanned opportunity. Vegas just had too much time in the crease. They were able to move the puck around without resistance and essentially pass the puck around Philip Grubauer to get that one in. That came on this play where you can see him just reaching out for it. So that one you got to be better about clearing people out of the crease and doing it fairly. I know Vincent's talked about it in the past where it's not just as easy as pushing people out of the way. So yeah, just unfortunate that you weren't able to push through and get more there. Jaden Schwartz had a really nice goal for the only score that Seattle got in that 13th loss to Las Vegas. But no, Seattle had waves of pressure. And if they're able to generate that sort of thing in the playoffs, then they're going to be good to go. And so I mentioned that we've got our little Stanley Cup playoff, the little placards that they were giving out at the game that they clinched. So got that there. I'm going to leave that in the studio here. I don't take too much stock out of those last few games. I mean, the one against Arizona, again, you took care of business there. It was nice to see in the last few minutes Joey Decord get to go on the ice as a former Arizona State Sun Devil there and be able to play in that building of Mullet Arena in essentially his home building, right? The game to Vegas in the back-to-back, again, it's the second game of a back-to-back. They just clinched the playoffs. I wouldn't take too much stock in it. It's disappointing to lose to the Golden Knights there. And if you wanted to really have that third overall spot in the division and play in Edmonton, then you would have needed to win that game, or it might have depended on actually if you beat the Golden Knights. And then that one on the 13th, once we found out that the Kings had won, it didn't really necessarily matter that much at all, except for Vegas, who needed to win that one if they wanted to lock up those spots that I mentioned. So I wouldn't take too much stock in it, but it was good to see them have that sort of pressure generated throughout the entirety of that game there, and that does bring some encouragement in there. So something that doesn't was some injury-related stuff that we've got here on the 13th. Just after that game against the Golden Knights, it was announced that forward Andrei Burakovsky will miss the start of the playoffs. He had a surgical procedure to address a reoccurring lower body injury. The reports that I got were that he would have been good to go this week, but he had a setback occur. So he had that procedure. From what I understand, he could make it. He could join the team later on in the playoffs into the playoff run, but you want to get this sort of thing taken care of. I mean, he's in the first year of a 5-year deal. He missed the last 32 games of the season. I'm not too worried about it. Again, he's going to be a key player for you for the next few years to come, but you don't want this injury getting messed up even worse. And then, he's not a productive player for you over the course of his contract. So hoping that Berkey heals up, hoping that things are better sooner rather than later for him. We've got some other team-related news as the Kraken signed a few younger players to entry-level contracts and made an interesting roster move over the past week, so we'll go over that. April 10th, the team signed forward David Goyette to a contract. They signed him to a two-way, 3-year deal at $950,000 AAV. Yes, I said that right. Okay. Goyette is expected to report to Seattle's AHL affiliate, the Coachella Valley Firebirds. He spent the entire 2022-23 season playing for the Sudbury Wolves of the OHL, which is the Ontario Hockey League, totaling 92 points, 41 goals, and 51 assists in 63 regular season games, and setting OHL career highs in goals, assists, points, power play goals, shorthanded goals, and game-winning goals. He led the Wolves in goals, points, power play goals, and game-winning goals, and his 51 assists were the second best mark on his team. His offensive output also placed him in the top 10 in the OHL in goals and game-winning goals, and earned him Sudbury's nomination for the Red Tilson Trophy, which is awarded annually to the OHL's most outstanding player during the regular season. The 5'10", 172-pound forward has totaled 165 points in 129 regular season OHL games. In 2021-22, he concluded the regular season as a finalist for the Rookie of the Year award, leading all rookies and his team in goals and points. He was the recipient of the 4 Wolves year-end awards at the end of the 2021 regular season, including the Bud Burke Top Rookie, Bill Plant Top Scorer, Most Goals, and the Pete Shields Award for Most Assists. That same day, the team reassigned forward Shane Wright to the Firebirds, after his OHL team, the Windsor Spitfires, I almost said Firebirds again, ended quickly as the team was eliminated in the first round, even though they had finished the regular season off as one of the top teams in the OHL. So Shane has played in the last few games for the Firebirds as they build up for the playoffs, and we'll have more of the AHL news here. If you follow us on our YouTube in the Futures follow-up report. So keep an eye on that. Make sure you follow us on YouTube as well, or subscribe. Same thing. On April 11th, the team signed forward Logan Morrison to an entry-level contract. He signed a 3-year entry-level deal as the same amount as Goyette at $950,000 AAV. He split the 22-23 season between the Hamilton Bulldogs and the Ottawa 67s of the OHL, serving as Hamilton's captain before being acquired by Ottawa in a midseason trade. He totaled 94 points, 40 goals, 54 assists. In 56 regular season games and all, setting career highs in goals, power play goals, shorthanded goals, and game-winning goals. His 94 points were good for 7th in the entire OHL and led all Ottawa skaters, and it marked the second consecutive year that he recorded at least 90 points in a season. Morrison was named Ottawa's best forward at the conclusion of the regular season and is his team's nominee for the Red Tilson Trophy as the OHL's most outstanding player, just like we mentioned with Goyette. The 6-foot, 180-pound center has totaled 273 goals, 273 points, 111 goals, 162 assists in 222 regular season OHL games with the Hamilton Bulldogs and Ottawa 67s. He set an OHL career high with 100 points in 21-22, becoming just the second player in Hamilton franchise history to record 100 points in a season. So a nice couple forwards there to sign for the prospect pool of the Kraken. I know there's been some odd criticism of the Kraken prospect pool, considering they've been around for 2 years and they have a good amount of talent, as we mentioned with our futures account. But I digress. On the 14th, the team reassigned goaltender Joey Decord to the OHL Coachella Valley Firebirds, as he had been up in a emergency capacity, and it's expected that Martin Jones's health is back enough where they don't need to have Decord up here in that emergency capacity. So next up, the NHL playoffs. If you aren't aware, the NHL playoffs are universally regarded as the most exciting time in all of American sports. So again, we're going to keep this up here. They start today at 4 p.m. Thankfully, the Kraken don't play today, or else it would be a really big day. They play tomorrow, which makes it also a really big day. But we'll look here. Yeah, so they start at 4 p.m. today with the Islanders and the Hurricanes. That's in the Eastern Conference, so we don't need to worry about them yet. The Kraken ended the regular season with a 46-win, 28-loss, 8 overtime loss record, standing at 4th in the Pacific Division at 100 points. So next up, we found out that their opponent is the Colorado Avalanche, the former team of Philip Grubauer and Andrei Burakovsky. It's going to be this. I mean, this is the first ever playoff series in Kraken history, and they do so against the defending champs. the defending champs will be without top player Gabriel Landeskog, who has missed the entire season. He's not going to be able to make it to the playoffs here. So round one versus the Avalanche. The first two games are going to be in Colorado as the team, as Colorado clinched the top spot in the Central Division. April 18th at Colorado is game one. That's tomorrow at 7 p.m. Pacific time. April 20th is game two with a 6:30 p.m. start in Colorado. Then the series switches over to Seattle after two games. April 22nd is game three, the first ever Kraken playoff game in franchise history. That's a 7 p.m. start. We'll see you there for that. And April 24th versus the Avalanche at 7 p.m. Pacific time. That's next Monday. So we'll go from recording to CPA, which is game four. If necessary, the remaining three games of that series would be April 26th at the Avalanche. So we go back over to Colorado. If we need game six, it would come back here to Seattle on April 28th versus the Avalanche. And then if they need a game seven, my heart hopes not, April 30th on the road in Colorado. All of those times are still to be announced, but it's more likely to be determined if they need those games. So first ever Kraken playoff series. We'll put those back on the board one more time if you need that. First two games in Colorado, the next two on the road. We move over now to we'll keep that up. We'll move over now to our OO Reign, who played their first home game of the season. It was their home opener. They set in a home opener attendance record at 9,219. That is a franchise record for a home opener, and it was during a Mariners game, and the Seattle Thunderbirds were playing down in Kent. So they were able to do so with other events. I believe also at the WAMU Theater, Keizo was playing a concert. I don't know who that is, but they were playing a concert. So other events were happening in the city that day, and the Reign still set an attendance record. So that's nice to see. We get into it. April 15th versus the Wave, a 1-0 win. We have two players of the match for this one for two nice performances. Our player of the match, number one, goalkeeper Fallon Tullis-Joyce. She only had a 7.9 match rating, so I question FootMob on that. 3 saves and 88% passing, 1 diving save, 3 saves made inside the box. She made some really key saves in the second half to keep the Reign in this one, to make sure that the Wave did not get on the scoreboard. We go over it in our recap, so make sure you go to the blogs to go and check that out, and to check out the other the photos from that match. And our photo of the match involves our second player of the match, midfielder Olivia Vanderjagt, a former University of Washington alumni, a Kent, Washington native. Vanderjagt, an 8.3 match rating, 1 goal, 3 shots, and 83% passing percentage, 1 interception, and 6 recoveries, including the game winner in stoppage time. Our photo of the match here by Liz Wolter. You can see the excitement there. It's like a dog pile, but not really. We got some players giving some serious ups here in the celebration of the goal by Vanderjagt. It was Olivia's first regular season goal in the NWSL and second goal of her career. The other one came in a game winner in the Challenge Cup, about a few days off from being a year exactly. So really nice to see that, and I'm biased, so it's always nice to see the locals do well there. So, I mean, this was a match that it was interesting. You know, for the most part, the Reign had San Diego hemmed in, and, you know, I know that we've talked about it, and it's been an issue with the Reign that the finishing hasn't always been there. They need to do better in that. But nice to see them get that win. I mean, San Diego, Alex Morgan had some solid chances to score there. Fallon Tullis-Joyce made sure that didn't happen. The injury report, Angelina and Phoebe McLernon remained out as Angelina continues to deal with a knee injury and work back from that season-ending injury she had last season. And then McLernon remains out with that back injury. Rose Lavelle was questionable with a leg injury, but I imagine with the slate coming up that the Reign wanted to make sure that it was just, they kept her out. It was a precautionary thing. Yeah, it was interesting because the first half, the Reign, I would say they dominated it. They had San Diego hemmed in outside of a few opportunities on counters, and they just couldn't put one in. Even the shots that they had for a decent amount of time weren't that dangerous. So it wasn't like you were missing out on the finishing aspect. That's why I mentioned that. In the second half, San Diego really started to put some pressure on, Choice continued to play a big role there. Megan Rapinoe came on as a sub, and she, within a minute of her substitution, she had a really challenging shot on net that Wave goalkeeper. I've got goaltender and goalkeeper mixed up. We go from hockey to soccer, and and Sheridan even had like a little grin on her face, to acknowledge Rapinoe. So nice to see Van der Yacht score that one there. It was one coming off of a corner. It bounced down around a little bit. Van der Yacht at the top of the box was able to hit it home and score that one. So really nice to see that, to see the winner, to get that home opener win. To see the Reign win the last two matches after losing the regular season opener in Washington. So good vibes around. Excuse me. Not so good vibes. This is sort of a developing story in team-related news. Excuse me. We found out over the past week on the 12th. That the OL group. So when I say OL Reign, Olympique Lyon is a French-based club that has ownership of the Reign. They bought it from the previous owners, Bill Predmore, and so we found out that the club is up for sale. Now, there's some interesting things that go into this that we found out. Michelle King, who owns the Washington Spirit, will take over the Olympique Lyon women's team. And so what it means. So 3 of the NWSL's 12 teams are now actively for sale. The OL group will sell the Reign just 3 years after purchasing the franchise and far raising their value. It's tough. It's tough, because the Reign have had so much change and so much back and forth, moving to Tacoma, coming back here. There's been so much movement for them, and it finally felt like they had been settled. They're training in Starfire, and they're back at Lubin. And now they've got this sale going on, and we don't really know what'll happen next. It's very interesting. I know that the NWSL spokesperson said that we're aware of OL Group's interest in exploring the sale of the Reign, and we will continue to work closely with them to ensure any potential owners are aligned with our league's vision and values. I imagine that means keeping the team in Seattle. Otherwise, so the OL Group has not reportedly had any statement on the thing. It's very interesting with Michelle King purchasing 52% of the stake in the Lyon's women's team. She's buying out 52% of the team, and the remaining 48% would remain with the OL group beginning on June 30th. Since that report came out, the club has sent a press release calling the article unverified and questioning both the ratification of an agreement and the terms. King's ownership would be a big deal because if she owned that, OL's group confirmation is selling the Reign would remove any concern of that. Okay. Anyway, sorry. There's a lot going on here. Ideally, the Reign wouldn't move anywhere, but this is a developing story. This was kind of a surprise story that dropped on the 12th, so we'll keep an eye on it. I know that the club wants to direct focus away from that and continue the regular season on. So we're going to try to do that, but also keep an eye on that story, and we'll continue to break that as that news comes out. The Equalizer, our friend Bella did a great job working on that. So we're trying to move on with regular season. The Reign sit at a 2-win, 1-loss, no draws record at 4th in the league table with 6 points. Their next few matches, they've got 2 matches. That's last week's match. They've got 2 matches here in the next week. April 19th on the road at Angel City is a 7 p.m. start. That is the first Challenge Cup match that the team will play this season that is able to watch on CBS Sports. April 22nd versus the Chicago Red Stars is a 12:30 p.m. start back at home. That's a regular season match, and that's on Paramount Plus. So two matches to play over the next week. In 2 days, they've got this one on Angel City on the road. On the road at BMO Stadium in California, and then back home on April 22nd versus the Chicago Red Stars at home at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time at Lumen Field. Talked about with that win and the Kraken making the playoffs, some good vibes. The Seawolves, might have hit a snag. They are 0-2 in the last 2 weeks. They started off the year 6-0, and then they've lost the last two. On April 15th at the Utah Warriors, our Seawolves would lose 35-41. Our player of the game, fly half AJ Alatimu. 6 points scored off of 2 conversion goal kicks and 3 conversion goal kicks. My apologies. Wrong number. And 235 kicking meters. This one was tough. Seattle went back and forth with Utah the entire way and just were not able to pull away after that. I mean, I talked about this last week, right? That Utah was going to be a tough team to play. It was going to be no easy stretch. They sat at a 5-2 record heading into this one. They're not easy. I mean, there's some positive to look at here moving forward with the Seawolves, that a lot of their games to close out the regular season are against teams that have struggled so far this year in MLR. But at the end of the day, you have to play the games, right? I can just sit here and look at the schedule and tell you these teams have not played so well. It doesn't matter, when the whistle starts. They play Toronto next week, who's struggled. Dallas has struggled the entirety of the time that they've been in MLR. Houston has currently overtaken Seattle for the second spot in the Western Conference. That's not going to be an easy match to play. Down in Houston, Chicago, the newest expansion team in MLR, they've struggled as well. Old Glory, they just beat Toronto 80-5 in any sport. That's a ludicrous, well, outside of basketball, in any sport, that's a ludicrous score. So that one's not going to be easy playing on the road in Leesburg. Play Utah again, play New England again. Well, no, not again. Play New England. They're not an easy team to play. Wait, Old Glory. I think it's New England actually beat. Anyway, one of those two teams. And then you play San Diego to close out the regular season. And that's not going to be an easy game to play either against your rivals. So a good amount of the teams you play going forward should be favorable matchups. I say should be, and I don't want to jinx anything, but you have to play those games still. But I'm not necessarily worried about it, especially considering also the team's fight in this game against Utah and the fight also that they showed against San Diego as well. They had a very good chance to win that game against San Diego, and it just came up just short. So I'm not too worried about it. We'll get into team-related news here. On the 11th, 2 Seawolves remain to the MLR top 15 performers of Week 8. Loosehead prop Mazamo Majola, 49 meters run, 17 ruck rivals, and 9 tackles made. My apologies. And then fly half Jordan Chait, 13 points scored, 39 meters run, and 12 tackles made. On the 13th, the team made a trade. The team acquired fly half / fullback Adrian Karels from the Dallas Jackals in exchange for salary cap considerations. Karels grew up in Sir Lowry's Pass, a small town outside of Somerset West in Cape Town, South Africa. His rugby career started at Hottentots, Holland High School, where he went on to represent on the U18 and U19 Western Province squads. He aided his side to winning the 2014 U19 Provincial Championship. Continuing to build his career, he attended the Boland Cavaliers Rugby Academy and was selected to join the senior squad. He competed in the Currie Cup qualification tournament. He went on to make over 50 appearances with 63 points scored for the Cavaliers. In 2018, he obtained a contract with the Toyota Free State Cheetahs, the multi-Currie Cup champions in the capital city of Free State, Bloemfontein. He has made 4 appearances with the Cheetahs and 6 appearances with the Free State 15 side. He made the move to the U.S., joining MLR in 2021 with Rugby Atlanta, who went on to win the MLR championship final that season and becoming the league runner-ups to the league runner-ups to the LA Guillotines. He was signed to the Dallas Jackals over the past 2 seasons, and now he is a Seattle Seawolf. On the same day, the team loaned Cole Zarconi, Alexis Glover, and Shane Berry temporarily to the U.S. Rugby National Program. So that's it for our Seawolves here. We move over here. They have a 6-2 record on the season to this point in time, 29 standing points. They sit at 4th in the league as a whole, 3rd in the Western Conference. They've taken a little bit of a tumble, but it's been 2 weeks. They have a chance to correct things this upcoming week. When they take on the Toronto Arrows on the road, April 23rd, with a start time of 1 p.m. Pacific. We move over here to our Sea Dragons. And I know last week, playoffs were in peril. It was this big deal. They returned to their winning ways on the road in a not easy building to do so. April 16th at the St. Louis Battlehawks, the Sea Dragons would win that one 30-12. Our player of the game, wide receiver Ja'Cour Pearson. Pearson, 7 receptions, 115 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown on the game, including a 68-yard touchdown in the third quarter to really help the Sea Dragons start to pull away. Now, this one was a big game for the Sea Dragons to win. They needed to win this one to keep their playoff hopes alive. St. Louis had beat them in week 2 in a close game on a last-minute field goal. And they're also battling St. Louis for this playoff spot as well. Seattle sits at 3rd in the XFL North Division. St. Louis sits at 2nd. So this one mattered in a whole lot of ways. And St. Louis is widely regarded as one of the best home field advantages to play against as well. I know that after the game, Seattle quarterback Ben DiNucci was posing in the locker room with a DiNucci and Gucci sign. So rubbing it in a little bit with, you appreciate a little bit of confidence. But not really big to win this one. So we'll get into it here. I talked about the playoffs, and last week there were scenarios. Our friend Nick, who is our stat guy in a lot of ways, he broke down the playoff clinching scenario. Seattle would be eliminated with a loss next week and will clinch with a win and a St. Louis loss. So we need to win this one next week, and St. Louis needs to lose next week. I'll get up here who they'll be playing really quickly. XFL website's very interesting. But if both win, it'll come down to a combined division rankings in points for and points against. So you want your wins to look good when it comes down to things. The DC Defenders, who Seattle lost to last week by a point, took the XFL North Division, and they'll host the North Championship. So we go over here to the schedule. Let's see who St. Louis is playing. Ooh, they play Orlando, and Orlando has not been very good. But Orlando lost to San Antonio. Oh boy. Okay. So that game is at. So I guess Seattle would find out if they are going to the playoffs or not, because St. Louis plays first in the day at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And then Seattle plays at 4 p.m. Pacific time later in the day. So, yes, recapping. Seattle will be eliminated from postseason contention if they lose this week, and will clinch with a win and a St. Louis loss. Again, if both win, it'll come down to a combined division rankings in points for and points against. There are tiebreakers, though, for this. And Nick, the stat man that he is, was able to break that down for us. So we'll get that here for you. We'll go into tiebreakers. St. Louis would need to allow 7+ points less than Seattle allows, and St. Louis would need to score 20 or more points than Seattle scores. Seattle clinches if St. Louis fails to do both. If they only do one, it would move to the 5th tiebreaker. That 5th tiebreaker, there would be a lot more math that would be involved, and would come down to points scored and allowed in each game in week 10. After the St. Louis game on Saturday versus Orlando, if St. Louis wins, he'll make more updates on the tiebreakers. So thanks, Nick, for that. So we'll focus on the task at hand. Seattle sits at a 6-3 record, 3rd in the XFL North. Their next game is at home, April 23rd, versus the Las Vegas Vipers. That is a 4 p.m. Pacific time start, as I mentioned. It'll be streamed on ESPN2 and ESPN Plus. Barring whatever I have on my schedule, I will likely be there for that to see if our Sea Dragons are able to take care of business. So that'll be, again, ESPN2 and ESPN Plus, April 23rd versus the Las Vegas Vipers. That's a big deal to help Seattle with their postseason. If you need to figure out, again, what they need to do, please go back and watch that. We head over to our Seattle Star of the Week. We do have one for you this week. I went with Jarred Kelenic for his past week, just to see him, again, continue to play well in the field. His bat's doing well, and just seems to be having fun with things. It's great to see Jarred continue to succeed, and his success to this team will mean a lot going forward if they want to, one, take the division, and to go any further than the ALDS round that they made last year in the playoffs, let alone clinching a playoff berth. So it's very nice to see Jarred, again, continue to do well. You know, those last 6 games, the 4 homers, to start those 6 games. The extra base hits, the nice play that was on Sports Center today in right field. Again, really nice to see all that for Jarred, and hoping that he's able to continue to perform that way. So let's see it. The Seahawks continue to prepare for the NFL draft. The Mariners continue on with their regular season through this 9-game homestand. The Storm have made their draft selections and are going to continue to prepare for the preseason. The Sounders are looking to bounce back from that loss to Portland. The Kraken are in the NHL playoffs, and that begins tomorrow. We'll flip that here. We'll flip that for you there. The Oil Reign are going to try and build off their last 2 wins as they continue their regular season with 2 matches to play over the next week. The Seawolves are looking to get back on track after losing their past 2 games. The Sea Dragons can clinch a playoff berth this week with some things involved. And there's more to go off of, I know that, but that's why we're here. That's what we do at Circling Seattle Sports. It's great to be back in studio. I want to thank Cuddy behind the camera and behind the production for being here with us. It's great to be back. It's great to be back in the studio. So until we see you next week on the 24th, hoping that all of our teams have some great success. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Hopefully the weather holds up for you. And we'll see you next week.